How's it going, guys? So the conversation around IARs seems to refuse to die. Um, Pretty long for an industry trend. Maybe it's more than a trend. I think they're probably here to stay. But I don't have an IAR. I do have plenty of experience with belt-fed weaponry, but nothing like a like in the Marine, like M27 or the MCR fight lights or anything that like those guys at Red Right Hand are cooking up. I don't have experience with those, but what I do have experience with is D60s, and at the very least, I can throw my hat in the ring about these in particular because I see a lot of memes where people talk about like IARs and how they're fed by like 4D60s or something like that, and they just fucking jam all the time. Um, so I figured I'll talk about my experience with M60s, or sorry, D60s. Wish I had an M60. So this D60 I've had for years. This is the only one that I have had it for since like 2019. Um, I have used it in live fire in the Army, but more than that, not really a whole lot. I have like practice shooting with it, like in my own time, running a bunch of my own ammo through it, but you know, it's kind of fallen out of favor with me, and there are a few reasons for that. So let's just go ahead and jump into those. So this is uh this is the only like mil spec AR lower that I have. This is actually my first rifle. Um, it's not a real EOTech on there. Uh, so in a regular M4, this is the space between this little like loading lever right here and the lower receiver. And sometimes what I had happen to me shooting it, and uh, I think one time actually in training, is this little lever would pop. It would get jostled enough to where it would pop up over the magwell right there, and uh, it would cause the drum to have tension on the spring, and it would choke up. It would create all kinds of weird, crazy malfunctions when that happened. It was quite the mess. It also makes the gun quite quite a bit front heavy, or just heavy on the magwell, you know. But I mean, this is a little bit longer than an M4, but you get the idea. So originally, my idea behind why I would have something like this, why I would even want something like this, is as a team leader, as an infantry team leader, you have your saw with either a 50 or a 100 round belt. You would have a grenadier and a rifleman, both with 30 rounds in their M4, and then you as a team leader with a regular 30 round mag. And what I had seen happen, and had happened to me a couple times in training, uh, is that if you don't control your rates of fire direct or very well for your team, or if your team isn't very experienced at talking guns and stuff like that, when you're trying to lay down a base of fire and maintain a base of fire while you're, in my case, notionally taking contact, um, what would happen is you'd have three guns all go dry right at the same time, potentially right before or right after the saw. So what I did to alleviate that is I would slap this into my M4. I would slap that into my M4, and I would have as much, as two magazines when the drill started, when we were running these lanes, um, and it fixed that issue for me. But as I got more experienced as a team leader, I kind of needed it less, and I transitioned to a different setup. Uh, but I still like the idea of staggering your loadouts, for a civilian team, like a training group, or a a local defense force, perhaps is a good word for it. They also would run into a very similar issue with rates of fire, everybody running dry all around the same time, because again everybody's running uh, 30 round mags. So maybe that's applicable in that sense, at least if you can get over the hang up right here. But let me go ahead and talk about how I got around that in training. Because really, that's, in my experience, this little lever popping up is the greatest defect that the D60 has. So this is a regular mil-spec lower, and it has the HRF Concepts magwell on it. And as you can see, it doesn't leave this little lever enough room to, to pop up over the lower receiver and to cause tension. So that works as a solution. Any kind of lower receiver with a flared magwell, I think, is going to make it too wide for one to be able to hop out on its own there. Now, when I was using it with my M4, this is the solution that I took. I just took a piece of 100-mile-an-hour tape and I taped the lever down so that when I was walking with it or when I was running with it, IMTing with it, it wouldn't get jostled to the point where it would just somehow pop over that. Again, I'm not really sure how that malfunction happens, but other than that, that's, you know, that's the only problem I've really had with these. But I don't mean to downplay that as a flaw. The it it's got a detent. When you fold it down, it clicks down, and it's supposed to hold itself, but it really doesn't. Maybe it's just because mine's old, or because it's gone through a bunch of cycles with it being fully loaded and then fully unloaded. Maybe that's the issue, but that's the fatal flaw with this, in my experience. But it's a very, very simple fix. Just taping over the lever, and all of a sudden now it runs totally fine. Now, I said earlier that I had a different solution these days for it, and I guess if you guys don't care, I'll go ahead and get into that. So this is what I ended up doing because it worked a little bit better for me, for maintaining that fire. So this is also from HRF Concepts. It's going to make it seem like I'm shilling them, but I promise I'm not important enough to be paid by them. But it's two PMags. One's got this extender base plate on it, so this is 25 rounds, and this is 20 rounds. And one thing I got better at doing as I got older in my position as a team leader is I learned to stop focusing so much on the fire that I put down and focus more on controlling the fire that other guys put down, specifically the saw. Uh, working with my saw gunner more and controlling that weapon system more, helping him identify his rates of fire, keep his rates of fire where it needs to be, and making sure that he's feeding his gun properly. So cutting down the ammunition that I'm carrying in one magazine, but also still carrying above a standard combat loadout. If I only have 6 mags on the kit plus one in the gun, this is still, 210 rounds plus. It's not plus by very much, not like a D60 is, but it's still meeting that standard. Is the standard arbitrary? Yeah, kind of. But, sometimes you just got to roll with it. So I had it for a similar reason to the D60, and honestly, I like this way more. I think this, for a rifleman, um, is a way better way of, like, that concept of, well, if everybody's going to be going dry about the same time, I should proactively do something to offset going dry when everybody else does. I think this is a better way of doing it than most guys' ways, because I'm usually shooting less anyways. I'm more focused on controlling the saw now. So those two guys are probably going to go dry and have to buddy reload over there while I'm picking up fire for the saw and potentially, getting his ammo for him and laying it out for him so he doesn't have to fight with his kit in the prone about it. And this is a super quick and easy mag change. You're just from one down to the other. real nice and easy. But yeah, that's you know, it's a real simple solution to a really simple problem. Not exactly rocket science here. So closing thoughts on this. Got the D60 right here and the double mag right here. I forget what HRF Concepts calls this, but are these good for AARs? Well, I mean, they run decently enough in a regular AR. Aside from the lever, I've never had any other problems with them uh, being jammed up by being ran too fast. One of my ARs, I used to have a binary trigger in it, and I shot it with this a few times back when ammo was real cheap, and I never had a problem with outrunning this. Outrunning the triggers actually way easier to do. Uh, so yeah, it was never this issue. It was usually the gun issue. Uh, but these kind of took the same approach, uh, or I used these for the same approach when I was in, and I guess now just by nature of this being fucking shitty to carry and this being way easier to stow after you use it. Like when this is empty, the only option is a cargo pocket or a dump pouch, and sometimes that just fucking sucks. Yeah, I had it fly out on a couple of ranges. I would have lost it if it would have been a real scenario. But this, I never had a problem with that with this because it's way easier to fit in a cargo pocket. Even though, well, no, you can see how much more space the D60 takes up. You can see it behind it. This is way easier to stow than this. So if you're a rifleman and you're thinking about getting a D60, maybe experiment with double mag setups. And if you're an IAR thinking about, or if you're thinking about getting an IAR and thinking about feeding it with magazines, well, personally, I think support weapons don't do so good with magazines, and drum magazines suck to carry. So just think about it. I mean, I think that the idea itself is feasible under the right conditions. I just don't know how many people actually reach those conditions. But please let me know what you guys think. It's entirely possible that I'm missing something, and hopefully you were able to follow this unscripted video. It was kind of just flowing through. But other than that, have a good one, guys. Appreciate it.